Today is Thursday, March 31st. We're talking about a major policy shift that could bring a rush of migrants to the U.S. Mexico border, and how Russia is already breaking its promises from this week's peace talks. Also, an update about the severe weather that took a toll on several states. Plus, file your taxes for free? You've seen the ads, but we'll tell you why a new lawsuit calls them misleading. Apparently, Will Smith was asked to leave the Oscars ceremony, but refused. And why the U.S. men's soccer team celebrated even after losing its latest game. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, today, people across the southern U.S. will be cleaning up from a severe weather outbreak. Homes and businesses were heavily damaged, and power lines and trees were knocked down in several states like Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee. First, it was Arkansas. A tornado struck just northwest of Little Rock. Some buildings there were flattened, and at least 7 people were hurt. Then the storms moved east. Tornadoes were spotted near Monroe, Louisiana, and in Jackson, Mississippi. And it's not clear if it was a tornado, but some kind of severe weather caused widespread damage in Jackson, Tennessee, too, including at a hospital and nursing home. Extremely strong winds are also fueling a wildfire on the opposite side of Tennessee, and the risk isn't over yet. As of this recording, this line of storms is still pounding parts of Tennessee and Alabama into western Georgia. Then later today, thunderstorms move to the East Coast, but at that point, they're not expected to be quite as strong. Russia has been bombing and shooting in Ukraine in the very same areas it promised less than 24 hours earlier to scale back its attacks. The latest intense strikes have been in the outskirts of Kyiv and another city in northern Ukraine. Officials say homes, libraries, shops, and more have been destroyed. And on top of that, Ukrainian officials say Russian troops have stepped up attacks in eastern Ukraine, too. But as of this morning, as the war is going into its 6th week, Russia does not actually have any major Ukrainian city under its control. Now, many Western leaders think some Russian troops are regrouping to prepare for even more violence, while others keep fighting. And it's possible the man in charge of Russia's military is being kept in the dark. The White House now says it has intelligence that Russian President Putin has been misled by his advisors about the status of the war and the impact sanctions are actually having on Russia's economy. Meanwhile, the U.S. told Ukraine another $500 million in direct aid is on its way. That's on top of the more than $2 billion in humanitarian and security assistance the U.S. has sent since the start of the war last month. Russian and Ukrainian negotiators agreed to another round of peace talks tomorrow. The rule that kept 1.7 million migrants from entering the U.S. could end soon. We're talking about Title 42. It's been in place for 2 years now because of the pandemic. It lets border officials quickly turn away most undocumented migrants without giving them a hearing to prevent COVID-19 from spreading in holding facilities. Well, now several news outlets report the rule will go away at the end of May because the CDC says COVID-19 is no longer an immediate danger. So every single migrant authorities encounter at the U.S. Mexico border will have to actually be detained. The Homeland Security Department put out a statement this week saying border crossings could climb as high as 18,000 a day. That's up from about 7,000 a day now. Some border officials worry that could lead to dangerous overcrowding in border facilities, and people who would normally be jailed or deported might have to be released into the U.S. That's reportedly why the Biden administration is waiting a couple of months to actually act on this change. U.S. officials hope that time will let Homeland Security prepare for the big rise in border crossings. Already, DHS and FEMA have been building more temporary facilities, deploying more agents to the border, and more. But preparations or not, there's mixed reaction from lawmakers. Some Democrats say it's long past time to lift the order, that it's been cruel to deny people refuge and protection when they have the right to asylum. But some Republicans say the administration should keep the rule indefinitely, since lifting it will overwhelm the border, and border resources have already been stretched thin. Either way, the White House is expected to formally announce this policy change as soon as today. President Biden is calling on Congress to approve even more money for COVID-19 relief. He says money for testing, vaccines, and treatments is running out, so his administration needs billions more dollars in federal funding. Biden says without it, the U.S. would be left vulnerable to another wave of the virus. The thing is, though, it's not clear where the money will come from, and Republicans say until they know that, they can't vote for more money. So talks continue in Congress. On top of the calls for funding, President Biden unveiled the website covid.gov. On the front page of the site, you can enter the name of your county, and it will show you the COVID-19 risk level in your community. The site will also tell you where to get COVID-19 tests, vaccines, or treatments near you, and you can learn more about travel and mask guidelines. More news is coming up, but first, let's take a quick break to thank our sponsor. I'm sure you've heard lots about thread count when it comes to sheets, even if you don't fully get why it matters. Well, Boll & Branch points out it doesn't really matter how many threads you have if they're not the best threads possible in the first place. Boll & Branch uses the best 100% organic cotton threads for a superior softness and better night's sleep. I actually have Boll & Branch sheets on my bed right now, and I am loving them. They are really comfortable, yet breathable, which is important to me. I'm sleeping super well, and I've already noticed them getting even softer with each wash. Plus, I love the look of the color we chose, called Shore. It's a nice light blue. I have the signature hemmed sheets, and they are a bestseller for a reason, with more than 10,000 stellar reviews. Plus, I love that they're 100% free from toxins, so no pesticides or other harsh chemicals. Get 15% off your first set of sheets when you use the promo code NEWSWORTHY at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH, bollandbranch.com with the promo code NEWSWORTHY. The organization behind the Oscars clarified one more thing about that now infamous slap on Sunday night. The Academy now says it asked Will Smith to leave right after he hit Chris Rock, but that Smith refused. Now the Academy says it's considering how to punish him, and that could include suspending or expelling him. If he were to be expelled, that would keep him from voting for future Academy Award shows, he could never be nominated for another Oscar, and he could never attend another Oscar ceremony. The Academy will make a final decision at its next board meeting in a few weeks, and Will Smith has until then to respond if he wants to. Remember, this all started when Chris Rock told a joke about Will Smith's wife's buzzed head. She lost her hair because of alopecia. Smith reacted by storming the stage, hitting Rock, then cursing at him. He later apologized. His wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, also posted a graphic on social media this week that said, quote, "This is a season for healing, and I'm here for it." Chris Rock had been mostly silent about the situation, but after a long-standing ovation at a sold-out stand-up show in Boston last night, he made a quick mention of it, simply saying he's still processing what happened. Well, some sad news now about one of the most well-known action movie stars of our time. Bruce Willis's family announced the Die Hard star is stepping away from acting as he battles aphasia. The Mayo Clinic says that condition is caused by brain damage, and it makes it hard to understand or express speech. It can happen after a stroke or a head injury, but could also just develop over time from a tumor or disease. His family members have just said that he's been experiencing some health issues, and the aphasia is taking a toll on his cognitive abilities. So in a statement signed by Willis's wife, ex-wife, and 5 children, they said they're moving through this as a strong family unit. And they ended their announcement by saying, quote, "As Bruce always says, live it up, and together we plan to do just that." Well, we're right at the peak of tax filing season, and one of the most popular tax filing software companies is facing a lawsuit from the federal government. The FTC is suing the maker of TurboTax, calling its ads misleading. Intuit, which owns TurboTax, offers a free version, but the FTC says it's a bait and switch. The agency says most users, including people who file 1099 forms, are still charged when it comes time to file. The FTC's lawsuit says TurboTax users can file their taxes for free if they have a, quote, simple tax return. But if people don't know what's considered simple once they enter all their information in, they have to upgrade to a paid version. In fact, the agency says in 2020, around 2/3 of tax filers did not qualify for the free version of TurboTax. So now the agency is asking a federal court to immediately stop Intuit's, quote, bogus advertising. But Intuit says it will fight the suit, arguing its free ad campaigns have actually led to more Americans filing for free than ever before. This all comes as taxpayers rush to meet the April 18th filing deadline. Blue Origin's 4th spaceflight launches today without any celebrities on board. Comedian Pete Davidson was slated to be the next famous face to ride to the edge of space, but the SNL star dropped out after a schedule change pushed the flight back by a week. So his seat was given to a longtime Blue Origin employee, the chief architect of the very rocket he'll fly on. Besides him, 5 paying customers will take the 10-minute joyride. And speaking of space, NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei made it back to Earth safely after spending a record-breaking 355 days in space. There were some fears about his return since he was sharing a spacecraft with 2 Russian cosmonauts amid tensions back on Earth. But all 3 landed safely in Kazakhstan yesterday. It's something American soccer fans have been waiting 8 years for. The U.S. men's national team will be playing in the most prestigious soccer tournament in the world. The Americans qualified for the World Cup last night following a match against Costa Rica. And right away, they started celebrating, even though they actually lost the game 2-0. The thing is, the U.S. was already ahead of Costa Rica in the standings because of how many goals they've scored overall in the qualifying round. So going into the game, the U.S. just could not lose by 6 goals or more. It's especially exciting for the players since only one of the guys playing last night has ever been to a World Cup before. And no U.S. men's team has ever won a World Cup. This year's tournament starts this November in Qatar. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Rothy's. We all know that feeling of finding something you love, right? Kind of a new obsession. I know I've had that favorite show on Netflix or that go-to restaurant. Well, Rothy's could be your new everyday shoe obsession. They already are for me. And I always appreciate that so many of you listeners have let me know that you too are now loving your new Rothy's shoes. But if you haven't tried them yet, or if you're ready for a new pair, please know they always provide right out of the box comfort and come in so many different amazing styles and colors, from flats to ankle boots and more. Plus, you can wash them. My latest pair of Rothy's is one of their best sellers. It's The Point. Plus, I love that everything Rothy's makes is better for the planet. They've repurposed millions of water bottles into their signature thread that goes into every single one of their products. So step up your shoes and accessories this spring and get ready to be asked, are those Rothy's? Plus, get $20 off your first purchase at rothys.com/newsworthy. That's ROTHYS, rothys.com/newsworthy. Now back to Thing to Know Thursday. The most popular app across the globe may have had a hand in teen girls developing tics. The Wall Street Journal reports since the start of the pandemic, doctors in the U.S. and U.K. have seen a dramatic spike in young girls looking for treatment for tics. Doctors learned a lot of them had watched videos from TikTok creators who claim to have Tourette syndrome, which is one type of tic disorder. Some influencers record themselves involuntarily cursing and hitting themselves, among other things. Videos under the Tourette's hashtag have been watched billions of times. And now doctors aren't necessarily diagnosing more Tourette's, but they are seeing a new kind of mental illness. Some researchers call the sudden surge a pandemic within a pandemic. They point to teens struggling with schoolwork and feelings of isolation, all coming out in these tics as expressions. But one pediatric psychologist says TikTok is not creating the stress these teens feel. Instead, she says the tics are a byproduct of anxiety, depression, and even traumatic stress. So instead of saying things like, it's all in your head, she thinks acknowledging that these type of symptoms are shaped by social context and now by social media could help teens find relief. Some other reports say medications, counseling, and stress management have shown to help as well. Also key, avoiding social media posts like these about movement disorders. Thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back with much more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.